You are listening to the e-flux podcast.
In this episode, David Kim and Yazan Khalili discuss Yazan's video, Hiding Our Faces Like a Dancing Wind. For visual reference, there's a link to a segment of the video in the show notes. David Kim is a lawyer and critic. He collaborates with various artists and curators, while also writing and lecturing on topics in law, ethics, and visual culture. Yazan Khalili lives and works in and out of Palestine. He is an architect, visual artist, and cultural activist.
Hi, I'm David Kim.
And I'm Yazan Khalili.
It's such a pleasure to be here this afternoon with Yazan and with e-flux to discuss Yazan's work, Hiding Our Faces Like a Dancing Wind, which is included in the show now on at MoMA, Being New Photography. Yazan, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
And thank you, David, for doing this.
Because we'll have listeners really and not viewers, I thought that I would begin by describing in a fairly summary fashion the work itself so that we can all have at least a partial mental image as we proceed through the rest of the conversation.
Totally.
Great. So this is a video work, approximately 7.5 minutes in length. In the gallery, it's installed on a single computer screen, which is on a large, otherwise empty desktop. No chairs, no stools in front of it against the wall in the gallery. We open to the image, really, of a computer desktop in gray. We see that it's running Apple software. In the upper right-hand corner, we have an ID, which is guest user. And the work opens with a large window, which shows a movie file of a woman, about whom more later, making various gestures with her hands, framing her face in different geometries. We see this through a recording of an iPhone screen, which is interposed between the recording camera and the woman, the subject. And we see the facial recognition software, this yellow frame, at turns, framing her face and then failing to recognize her face. Very quickly after this movie file appears, we have then two additional windows. In, let's say, the lower right hand of the screen, we have a Finder window, which shows both the movie file and then a long list of JPEG files, which then in the left third of the screen, we see open. And these are screenshots of an iPhone screen on which the camera app is open. And that camera app is in the act, or in the process rather, not the act, of identifying faces, which in fact are masks, pictures that you took in the context of two museums which you visited in the process of making this work.
Yes, the Tropen Museum and Cape Orly in Paris.
Yes. And then the final window, which opens just a bit after these first three, is in the upper right hand. And it's, I think, a text editor file. And on it unspools a long sentence with really no punctuation until the end, an ellipsis. And this text unfolds, comes to be visible on the screen through the course of the work, such that, let's say, the visible composition of the text ends approximately when the work ends or just before.
Yeah.
And then we can say a bit more later in this conversation about the way in which the video concludes, or at least appears to conclude. So with that partial image in mind, I would invite you to reflect and enter however you would like about the interests or concerns or problematics or experiences that led you to the creation of this work.
Yeah. Thank you. Really amazing description of the video. Yes, as you were saying, the video has these different elements inside it, and the way it's also being exhibited is part of the general interest that I'm beginning to have more about the screens and the relation between the contemporary image or the image that we produce and the screen that holds this image. More and more now, images live in the screen. They are barely printed, so we see them all the time before we take the image, after we take the image, when we want to share them. They live in the screen. So by time, as someone who uses image, and I'm more of an image artist, I'm beginning to have questions about how these, or how is this image being produced, what kind of things it exposes, where does it live, how does it distributed, etc. So in this video, what you see is, as you're saying, a screen that is inside it, showing a screenshot of a mobile that which I was taking the photos of the masks with, and at the same time as a video of a screen of a mobile shooting another mobile. So in a way, the screen aesthetics here is very essential to the work. It's actually the first interest that I began working with, because it is how this image is being produced and distributed. At the same time, what these screens do, they somehow expose structures and mechanisms of the algorithms of taking these images. So whenever you want to take a photograph of someone, or of something or whatever, you are looking at the screen, and the screen is showing all its kind of little details of how it's working.
It's logics.
It's logic. So these yellow squares that you get, for instance, if you are using an iPhone and you are taking photo of someone, a portrait of someone, and the screen at that moment produces this square. But of course, when you take the photo, you don't see it. The information that this square produced becomes embedded inside the image. So it recognizes the person, etc. It asks you if you want to tag this person, etc. But before that, there's that moment, that gap in the life of the image, that gap in the algorithms somehow. That you see it. You see how it's working, its aesthetics, how it's producing the facial recognition process, etc. And I want to capture that. I want to show that. I want to expose that so that I can work with this very specific moment in the life of the image. It's a very operational image that it has a certain function, and then it disappears. And I try to capture it. I try to stay with it, and I try to bring it in permanently. So I either record it or I screenshot, shoot it. So in a way, this operational image becomes an image in the work.
You mentioned the operational image in the context of this general interest in images that live exclusively or nearly exclusively on screens. And in the comments that you've just shared, you also mention you're an interest in facial recognition. Yeah. And as we were chatting in advance of this conversation, you mentioned your interest in facial recognition as a sort of theme in both the history of photography and the image, and in particular, the history of photography in the context of the exercise of imperial and colonial power. Perhaps you could say more about that.
Well, when I visited these two museums I was telling you about, the Tropen Museum in Amsterdam and Quai Branly in Paris, it's hard to pronounce it. Something a bit, how do you say, weird happened. A bit emotional even. So I was taking these photos. I was putting my phone to take the photos of the masks. I was doing something else, not interested. I wasn't interested, actually till now I'm not interested in the masks as such. And the camera, the screen, began giving me this facial, it began recognizing the mask as a face.
With the attendant yellow square. And
the yellow square around the masks. And, suddenly you begin feeling that these masks are haunted somehow, that there are faces there, This is not only a mask. Especially you're talking about the African masks and the Native American masks with all these details that they have on them, but yet they are still very much recognized as faces. So I began from that moment. I began capturing the screens. So not taking photos only of the mask, but of how the machine is looking at the masks, or you can call it this techno ideological gaze. No, like how this gaze, this mask, how this machine gazes at these masks and recognizes them as faces, and how they are brought back in this very haunting way into through facial recognition.
I'll say here in this moment, one thing that I find interesting about the fact that the software recognizes these masks as faces, we could understand that in two ways. On the one hand, as a sort of mistake on the part of the software, because it is not in fact a human face as we understand it in some narrow way. But on the other hand, one reason that that technological fact seems so powerful and so beautiful is because in other ways it's accessing a different ontology in which these masks are, in fact, perhaps not only representations, but also, in fact, incarnations or distributions of a certain personhood. And so there's a way in which the technology becomes smarter or more perceptive than itself. I think that's quite lovely.
Yeah. Like there's this very uncanny moment in this whole process. But also, it makes you think of the history of facial recognition technology.
Understood in a broad sense.
Yes, in that kind of colonial history too. That it's not only a product of the contemporary, but it's actually it's connected to that anthropological colonial history of the colonialists going to their colonies, and looking at measure the people's faces and the
size
feature,
of their skulls, and
size of the skull, the size of the nose, the size of all these things in the face to recognize them either as humans or not. So this trajectory between the now and this technology and that history, it makes one wonder and question the power structures that's still functioning somehow. That it's not a product of a development of technology, but it's a continuation of a certain ideologies and certain processes and certain ways of thinking that there is in the faces something that through the face a certain kind of control can happen, or a certain kind of knowledge can be produced, or a certain kind of data can be made. And this project, of course, doesn't aim to open all of that, but it hits there. It's a layer between the many layers.
And this is, of course, not a new claim that I am making, but an important fact to note in the context of this conversation that, of course, the technological development of photography as a medium is inextricable from the colonial context, to the extent that, say, certain capabilities of discerning color in film are intimately related to the anthropological project, of recording certain sorts of bodies in certain kinds of lighting conditions and so on.
How the Polaroid camera was used in South Africa, So it's the photography, the image, the production of the image, and the power and the control connect together in many ways.
One thing that we should mention, as these screenshots are being displayed in the left third of the work, you, or let's say the mouse pointer, some agent in the work and behind the work and around the work, is cropping the image of the mask such that we see only, let's say, the face or the smallest part of the mask itself. These screenshots are saved in the recording. We see them appear as icons on the desktop, and very quickly they accumulate. behind the other windows that we see. And even as they become invisible, because they are so obscured, we have the sense that they are amassing. And so when these images, as I was chatting with you before, when these images reappear toward the end of the work, there is a powerful shape to the video work, because we see these masks becoming salient, then being cropped, then quickly accumulating in some part of the work that is not fully visible to us, and then they return in important ways toward the end of the video. I found this to be a quite lovely shape.
What I was trying to do again, like, is to with this cropping of the masks, somehow they are taken away from their context of being even an image, and there is something in them that becomes a face again when they are put over Lara's.
This is the woman in the video.
Yes, it's Lara Khalili, and
hello.
Hi, Lara. But yeah, so they are put on over her face, and there's something in them that themselves become a face. Yeah, I also was kind of like also testing that this what this yellow square, what the facial recognition technology saw as a face. What's the parameters? What are the limits of this is the face only, not this, not that. It excludes everything in the image and just looks at that little square. And I wanted to isolate that little square from all the context and just look at it. And it's totally a face. And
there's such a fascinating pattern of extraction. On the one hand, there is a moment in the context of colonial rule, probably, when these masks are torn from their original context, a kind of murder by removal, also theft, of course, and they come to live primarily as artifacts in the archive of some museum. And then, curiously, by another act of excerption or extraction, that is to say, by the cropping that you are doing in the context of this work, they somehow become reanimated, which is an interesting move.
Yeah. I didn't know exactly what to do with these faces, to be honest. Like, I wasn't expecting that the technology would open up a face to me. I was suddenly looking at my mobile, telling me that these are faces. What do you do then? It's a bit haunting, a bit scary, a bit. And then what? Yeah.
Yes, we feel a different responsibility or a different connection or a different mode of attention once the software indicates that we are in fact looking at a face to which we must owe some ethical duty by virtue of that fact.
Yeah.
Let's speak a little bit about the text in the work. And then let's speak a bit about the conclusion of the video. So in this upper right hand, in the text edit, I think I said text editor, this text edit box in the upper right, we have a sentence, a single sentence or a single phrase. And although there is no sound in the video, I thought that it might be useful for listeners to hear the text. And so, admitting that this is some distortion of the experience of this text, let me read it. All the masks that disappeared from our lives were not recognized as the faces of our ancestors, who came from the faraway shores of our dreams, asking us to recognize them as messages from trees, looking at us as we feel the pain of not being recognized by the thieves who stole our faces and left us unrecognizable, facing the flow of time, trying to hide our remains with our hands like a dancing wind, not wanting to have our faces recognized by the cameras that keep stealing our souls. Perhaps you could say a bit about that phrase.
So the phrase is one long sentence. And this is a kind of a style of writing that I've been working with a lot recently. And usually my work includes always a text. And in this sentence, I'm also playing a lot with the word recognition and the face and facing. So the recognition, the question of recognition is somehow a political moment to be recognized as a political being. Um, is the demand of the oppressed
Mhm.
is to be recognized, to be accepted somehow.
Mhm.
But mainly it's about that recognition.
Mhm.
So so and how so I was playing between this facial recognition, what the facial recognition technology has linguistically in it,
Mhm.
and the demand of being recognized or unrecognized,
Mhm.
unrecognized as a way to disappear in front of this gaze.
Mhm. And in that sense, to be unrecognized might also be a consequence of being deemed something less than human
Yes,
in the context of the other classification that we were discussing.
exactly. So it's in this kind of linguistic game between in the world of recognized, recognition, facial recognition, unrecognized, disappear, to face, and the face and to face, so as a way to face is also as a way of resistance somehow. But at the same time, the face itself becomes the, the the place that you lose your ability to protect your privacy. So yes, this sentence is playing on these kind of or working with these different possibilities of the language.
Mm.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed, one thing that anyone will notice in watching the work is that, let's say that in this window there are something like 10 lines. There are no line breaks, it just continues to run as the window is sized. Toward, say, the seventh or the eighth line, there begin to be errors in the
Yes.
typography.
Yes.
We see deletions and backspaces and errant characters. Tell me about that.
It really happened because I was writing. I was recording while writing. So at the beginning, one is more concentrated, like more focused
Yeah.
on writing, and slowly after writing 7 lines, you begin to do mistakes. And I decided to keep these mistakes. These mistakes, in a way, expose also the fact that there's someone writing.
Mhm.
A Brechtian moment of this theatrical
Mm.
performance of images on screen
Mm.
that um,
Mhm.
in a way exposes the backstage that, um, you are writing the word to, and oh shit, there's
Right.
something wrong,
Right.
you correct it, and I find these, again, like these little gaps in the process important to expose the structures.
Mm.
So
Mm.
the yellow square in relation to the facial recognition, and these little mistakes become elements
Mm.
in the way we comprehend this work.
Mm.
Uh,
There's also something perhaps almost always so rich in an uncertainty in writing. So imagine a certain kind of
mm,
handwriting, which begins to waver. And it can be unclear for the reader why that's happening, whether the writer is overcome with emotion
yeah.
or incapacitated with some physical condition. And so I read this work, this moment, as something similar. There was the indication of something, some affect, some experience that wasn't visible through the writing,
Yeah.
which I thought was quite nice.
Can be.
Uh,
Yeah.
So then let's move to the end of the work. These screenshots reappear. We see them, just the masks, imposed on Laura's by now still body because that movie file has ended. And as I mentioned to you before this conversation, I found the moment in which these masks return and we see them on the image of her body to be an extraordinarily moving moment. I saw them as animate and anguished and impassioned in a way that I hadn't before in the work. Just tell me a bit about the conclusion of the work and then what happens after these files are selected, deleted, and so on.
Yeah, like because what I do through the work, um, I keep opening these image files, and then cropping these masks. And as you were saying, they accumulate on the screen. That's how the computer works. It accumulates on the screen, and I didn't notice even that was happening. But then what I wanted to look at is this face having a body.
Right.
And so what I did is I brought them and I put them on Lara's face, and one by one they began actually be animated. They began to become faces, or you could not, although they are different in many ways. But again, because the technology is the facial recognition technology is cropping them, saying, well, this is the face only, and then when you put it on a body, it somehow connects. There's this connection happens between that face mask and the body of Lara. So I began, putting them one by one until they were all put. I deleted all these cropped images, deleted the file of the text, and the screen went back again to be empty screen, and that opened up for the next loop of the video. But the thing is, with this deletion of all the files, in which they become ephemeral, so they disappear, but they are at the same time recorded on the screen. So there's this kind of recording of ephemerality somehow, which again, it's something I was trying to work with then, and it wasn't like a 100% decision. It also became a decision that one was taking then. How do I end this film and so that it opens up in the next loop or something?
I was struck by that moment because the screen felt not only empty but also depopulated.
Yeah.
Yazan, thank you so much for the conversation. There's so much more that we could discuss. Perhaps e-flux will invite us back for a subsequent conversation.
Hopefully. I'm from Ramallah.
Thank you very much. What a privilege to be able to speak about your work today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yazan's video, Hiding Our Faces Like a Dancing Wind, is on view in New York through August 19th in the exhibition Being New Photography 2018 at MoMA. You can find an additional conversation between David, Yazan, Elizabeth A. Pavanelli, Jonathan Beller, and Vivian Zehurl on the impossible legality of an artwork in this month's e-flux journal, issue 90.